for me, dog, to the mandatory minicamp. I'll see you when I'll be there. I'm Aaron Rodgers. You don't have to worry. But there he is. I'm watching him right now. Highlights, bopping around back there, taking the hand off, throwing it out there to the flat, looking spry.
I want to push back on bopping and spry.
He's just bopping and dipping and bopping. Number 8. Sal Capaccio with us now on the West Her Hotline. Well, Sal, it is some amount of a surprise, I think, that Cook was there, isn't it?
I think so, sure. I mean, you had reporting coming from, Adam Schefter recently that said that this wasn't going to happen, alluding to that. I don't think he said specifically, but I think it kind of hinted towards that way. And how, there's a disconnect. He's disconnected himself from the team and the city. I mean, they kind of went pretty deep into that.
Don't expect to see him anytime soon was a phrasing used.
There you go. Well,
yesterday's reporting. So.
Soon was only, for 24 hours because now we see him. So, listen, I'm a little surprised, right? I'm maybe more than a little surprised. I said with you guys the other day, maybe last week, I at this point probably didn't expect him to be there, but you never know. Well, now we know he's here. And honestly, some more of my surprise might be not only that he showed up, but he actually did everything. And he was working and, participating like everybody else. So it's just really interesting that we've waited this whole time. We've had all of this talk going on about it, all this wondering about it. And James Cook shows up like everybody else to the first day of mandatory minicamp.
So the question is why, I guess. What if anything did we misread? Guy wants to get a bigger contract, of course. He wasn't too shy he wanted us to know. And coming off that touchdown year, it sort of made sense. 1 year left. Other Bills got that. He didn't. What did we misread? I guess I want to say, maybe a little bit in my own defense, Sal, as somebody that was surprised too, that I'm not sure how you'll have a take on this, how strong the correlation is between being there today and I guess the contract is not an issue or not as serious an issue as maybe we had assumed.
Well, I think it's still a serious issue based on everything he said today. Not necessarily in a threatening or angry manner, but you want to know why he's here? He gave the answer. He was asked why he's here.
I like my money.
I like my money. That's why I'm here.
Right.
That's why they're all there.
That's why he showed up. He didn't want to be fined. I mean, it's simple as that, right? I mean, he kind of gave it to you right there.
Yeah.
He didn't want to be fined, but he still wants to be paid, and he thinks that the running back. He even talked about the running back position should be more valued than it is. That everything will work out in the end. And there was even a part in there where you kind of go back and listen to how he answered things, and I couldn't tell exactly if he was saying what I think he was saying, but I think he kind of left it open that he might show up to training camp and hold in. I kind of thought that listening back to the comments to the questions to him, hey, are you here? Are you going to be here and do everything and stay here? And then he said, we'll see when it comes to camp, something like that, right? So. Yeah, I don't think there's anything about his contract situation or status that hasn't changed. What changed was the fact that he could get fined by not being here.
Right. And, I wonder, Sal, from his standpoint, I mean, it's easy for us to just assume guys aren't going to worry about the money, but it's $100,000. To skip 3 days of not exactly, heavy lifting. Easy for me to say. I'm not the one jogging around a football field with a helmet and shorts on.
You make it sound actually pretty chill the way you just said it.
Right.
You made it sound like the hardest thing was putting the equipment on.
I think it might be. It's a lot to assume that a guy isn't going to care about $100,000. I guess is how I would want to say it. And furthermore, I wonder if you know this. I probably should have texted you this or brought it up to you when I was with you yesterday off the air. The forgiveness of fines. Does he need a new contract if he were to have skipped this and be fined that $100,000 in order to get that refunded or forgiven? Does that have to come in the form of a new contract, or can the team just waive that regardless of a new deal or not?
Because he's still on his rookie deal, I believe that, at the end of the day, the team can do that. But they don't have to do that if they think you should be there, right? I mean, I don't think they're just going to do that absent of a new deal.
Right.
I think that's when you kind of forgive those things. So, yeah, because he's on his rookie deal, those things can be forgiven, but I don't think they get forgiven by any team that's not going to give you a new deal. They're
Right.
like, look, what? It wouldn't make sense, I guess, to do that, right? Maybe it would. I guess you could say like, well, you're going to show up and you're going to be here, so I guess all is forgiven. That being said, now the other part of this is there's been some reporting the last, I guess going back into last week about how according to the CBA, if a player does not show up to the first day of mandatory report day at training camp, he does not get an accrued season. Let me explain what an accrued season is. It's basically everybody in the league. You have to be in the league. You have to have 4 seasons in to be a free agent. But you only get credited with a season if you're on like the regular roster or the practice squad for 6 games. So in order for you to get a season counted towards free agency, that has to happen. But you also, if you don't show up to the first day of training camp, it is done. You can't even get a season. So essentially, if James Cook didn't show up to the first day of training camp, he couldn't even count this year doesn't count for a season for him. He wouldn't even be a free agent. Doesn't say though you have to stay at training camp. It doesn't say you have to actually do the work. You could show up to the first day and you could leave, and that would satisfy the requirement.
I was under the impression that was for 3, if a player didn't have 3 years. And so I thought Cook sort of was exempt from that to begin with. But I might be confusing things. So maybe I should stop talking because
there's a lot of stuff that's confusing. Let me go back and check. You could very well be right, but I think the way Joel Corey explained it was that. But that could be it. It could be that's the 3rd year. Maybe the first 2 years is when that happens.
Okay, I think I have this then because I heard the same interview that I think you're referencing. This gentleman was on with Chris and Steve on Friday. I sent a message to Brownie about this because I wanted to clarify before we got on the air on Monday. This is why I'm saying I probably should have brought this up to you yesterday when we saw each other socially, and I forgot to. But anyway, I sent a message to Chris. Like, did your guest say that he has to report to training camp or not get credit for the year? And Chris said he looked into the CBA and thought that he was right and that was the case. I'm like, well, that's a big piece of information. But it turns out, once Chris got into it further, that I think Corey misunderstood Cook's timeline. He does not. It does not meet that criteria. So he does not sacrifice the entire season if he's not there to report on training camp day.
Got you. Okay.
I understand.
Now that being said, he did indicate he would be. He said today he was asked once about going to training camp, and he basically is like, "Yeah, I'll be there." And then later he was asked about, what he would do or staying there or doing work. And he said, I guess we'll see when it comes to training camp or something like that, which I think just leaves the door open for him to still kind of show up but not really do much.
Right. That is really what I keep coming back to is just how necessary is it to correlate presence this week with like no issue, no worries. Or, the inverse of that. Like, this is a pretty, Sal, right? I mean, this is a pretty chill week. They're working out their stuff. They're throwing the ball around and everything else, but nobody's hitting or anything like that. Compared to the first day of training camp when they're on the field, I imagine this looks different. And what is this week, today, tomorrow, and then we'll go to the movies?
Yeah, probably something like that. I mean, this week is just like OTAs. You're right. There's no hitting. There's no pads. And like the first few days of training camp are like that as well. But you're right; it is a little bit different feel and vibe. And you're there, and you're at Fisher, you're away, you're in a dorm room, and you're going to meetings all day. And the season has started essentially, so it is a little bit different then. I do think it's interesting though that James was asked like, why are you doing everything today? Why are you here? And he said, I'm on a team. This is the team up. This is our team.
I'm a leader,
and I'm a leader. I'm not gonna come here and not do that. So as much as he might say like, we'll see. Maybe it's just because he wants to keep that door open, but it feels like he's kind of given a glimpse into his own little soul here of saying, I just can't do that as an athlete, a competitor on a team, right? Like I need to, I'm going to go out there with my guys if I'm going to be here. So I just think it's really fascinating.
So the bottom line here, Sal, on a team that's not exactly loaded with these sort of potential crisis points or whatever, not a lot of controversy with the Bills. What's going to be our just us talking. What's our group policy then on this subject for the next 6 weeks? Like, it's not completely, if there's no contract announcement, it's not completely dead, right? The idea of Cook causing a stir into the summer, but it's his being here today at least softens it some.
I think so. Listen, it's still going to be a talking point, I think, for all of us in some way, shape, or form, because we could always think about, maybe if it could get done, and what does it look like if it doesn't get done? And maybe the conversation advances to, well, what do you do at the end of the year? We've had those conversations about guys. But sure, between now and then, there's still going to be some wondering of what is James Cook going to do at training camp? And if he does get to training camp, he plays, then it becomes more of, okay, he's in the last year of his deal. We'll still talk about, will the Bills sign him? What is he worth? That part of it won't go away until there is a new deal or there is no new deal, which is how much is he worth, and will the Bills actually wind up signing him at some point between now and March of 2026?
Yeah, just because he is here now to avoid, spending $100,000 doesn't mean, it also could be he was advised, whether something is imminent or not. He could have just been advised, you know what? You made your point on social media. Go in, play nice, and we'll see if that jumpstarts things. And if it doesn't, then later in the summer, training camp is another opportunity to perhaps take a stand if you're so inclined. So it doesn't have to. The feeling today that I have is that the story isn't completely dead, but it feels like it's on its last legs. He showed up to this. What is he going to not show up for training camp? That doesn't really make sense, but I guess he still could choose to make a stand then. This being a good faith effort to get something done. Look, I showed up, mandatory. I did my work. Let's get this thing moving here, or I could be a problem in the summer.
And it's so easy.
Right.
This week is so easy. Okay.
Yeah, We're going to be talking about this team in a lot of respects, right? This is funny because for how many years did, you guys go way back even longer than I do, and I will tell you that for many years I would come on and we'd talk about the quarterback. Who's the quarterback? Before Josh Allen, who is the starting quarterback? We'd have a lot of different storylines on the field. This team doesn't have many of those. There are a few, right? Max Harrison, Trey White, what's happened at D-line, you got a couple suspensions. But really, there's been very little drama, as we know, with this organization, other than Stephon Diggs a couple years ago, here and there, a few things. Secondly, there's just no spots open. There's not a lot of camp battles. Most starting spots are spoken for, except for maybe two of them. I'd say maybe one of them, and even a lot of the depth pieces. So what do you get to? You get to things that, okay, well, how about James Cook and his contract situation, right? So I think that's going to happen, and I do think this year, because of Hard Knocks being there, that will be a bit of a more intriguing, okay, how much are they going to focus on this? What's that going to be like watching it?
What a rug pull this was. Bean has to have a deal with Cook. This is his way of getting back at us. Now what will they do? They're still talking about it, and he's here.
We're going to start talking about receivers again.
Who was the starting quarterback of this Bills team back then? Boy, those were the days. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog with Sal Capaccio here on WGR. The rest of today, Sean McDermott speaking, Josh Allen back from his wedding as well. What stood out to you?
A couple things. We could start with McDermott. Actually, let's start with Josh, because Josh, he's another player on the team like James Cook. He did not want to really talk about anything with his wedding, which isn't surprising. Anytime anything came up about it, he would just, say, yep, and hey, we're good. Let's go. Time for football. Back to football. Something like that. So there were a few questions here or there about it. So we really didn't want to go down that road about it. Josh works on different things every year for his game. One thing he said he was working on this year, it wasn't like something, oh my God, I need to work on this, but hey, what are you working on this year? Well, there's always stuff, but maybe my feet and my, having his feet in the right spot when he throws, and he said Chris Scher is there this right now. Chris Herr, I think his name is. I apologize. He's the guy who works with Josh on the mapping, and we've seen how they do that really cool thing that we've watched the videos on. He was there today, actually, and the quarterbacks were working with him, and Josh was, referencing him being there and working on that. Really interesting about the wide receivers, how they're all different body types. They all have different skill sets, so trying to kind of work with each of them, whether you're talking about Josh Palmer, Curtis Samuel, whoever it is, they're all a little bit different. And, that was interesting to hear from him on that. And I will say, maybe the highlight of the day, you could look at it low light, I guess, the other way, but Joe Andreessen had a nice interception of Josh Allen today, actually, guys, which was pretty cool.
Several guys are injured. Not a big story necessarily. Taron Johnson, we knew on Bosa, and a few more. Hamlin.
Yeah, so Taron Johnson, actually, he is playing. Ty Johnson did not practice today. Taron does have a red jersey and did practice today. So both Taron and Ty, but just to clarify on that.
Okay.
Yeah, Joey Bosa, we know. DeMar Hamlin, not out there. Connor McGovern. While we were out there, Alec Anderson must have done something because he was practicing, and then trainers came over and they wrapped his leg. But I saw him afterwards. He walked in with the team and all that. It wasn't like he went in. They're going to be very, very precautious, guys, on anything that happens with any of these players right now. KJ Hamler was another one that wasn't out. Cole Bishop.
Cole
that's
Bishop,
one.
right.
Yep, Cole Bishop. And, again, he was out there walking around kind of with the defenders on the field, but when it came time to do stuff against the offense, he didn't do. So that just kind of tells me they're just being really, precautionary. And I think the bottom line on all of them, Sean McDermott said he doesn't believe any of them have anything that will keep them out of training camp, which is big. I think the other notable thing from Sean today was kind of how adamant he got, guys, after a question. I don't know the exact question, but it was something about young players because the answer was animated. And he was... It's not the first time this has happened with Sean when it comes to this particular subject. Maybe more animated ever, but he made it clear, that I know that people say I don't play young players. That is not true. We play young players. You earn what you get. And if you earn it, you will play. And this is not the first time he's kind of mentioned something about that particular narrative or perception of him that he thinks that he says is out there but untrue.
Didn't he also, I don't know if it was in the same context, because I did hear this point you're making about him talking about, if your teammates don't trust you, we're not going to put you out there. That's the bottom line. Whether you're a young guy or a veteran guy, your teammates got to trust you. We got to trust you. Trust. Mm-hmm. But didn't he also say we're going to play a lot of young guys on defense? At one point, that was the thing that really jumped out at me, which is, maybe it's obvious because of their draft class, right? I mean, the first 4 picks were all defense. I would expect them to all contribute in some fashion, whether Hairston wins a starting job or not. I expect him to be in the mix. And then all the defensive linemen absolutely are going to be in the rotation, assuming they're healthy.
Yeah, he did say that. And he said it's just the way it is. He's counting on, he's looking at it right now, and the way he's looking at his defense and the way it shapes up, he believes they're going to be playing a lot of young guys on defense, which is really interesting. And look, I mean, the defense just did not perform as well as they expected or it should have last year. They took the ball away. That was really great. But there were a lot of times where they just did not get, the necessarily results or the numbers that they felt they should get or want to get. And there's still some veterans on this team that will play. There's no doubt about that, obviously. And, Taron Johnson is going to be starting at nickel corner. Terrell Bernard, he is younger, but he's not, he's a vet now. He's going to be starting at middle linebacker. But you're going to have guys. You're going to have a Landon Jackson, maybe a Javon Solomon, a TJ Sanders, a Deion Walker. Those guys are going to play this year. Cole Bishop is a second-year player. He's going to play this year. Max Hairston could wind up starting at corner. We'll see about that. He's going to play. So this is probably a little bit more of a departure from what we have seen from that defense when you had so many veterans like Micah and Jordan and Tre'Davious White and Matt Milano and all of those guys playing for so long.
2 more quick ones. Shaq Thompson signed a 1-year deal.
Yeah, 1-year deal, Shaq Thompson. So the Bills actually get 91 on their roster because of their International Pathways Program player. Once again, that is Travis Clayton. He fills out the roster at 91. No corresponding move was needed. First-round pick of the Carolina Panthers when Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane were together in Carolina in 2015. Helped them be a part of that team that went to the Super Bowl and then put in some fantastic years. Just 3 years ago, he had 135 tackles in a year. But injuries have really kind of hampered him the last couple of years. Sean recognized that. He talked about it. But this is a guy that knows their defense. He's been very, very flexible as far as position is concerned. I don't know what kind of projection he has as far as anything when it comes to a 53-man roster, but it's certainly some added depth that you feel comfortable having if you're a coach that knows a guy that knows your system.
If McDermott gets defensive about whether he plays young players enough, wait till he gets tomorrow's question, why do you guys only sign players from the Panthers? He's going to love that next
okay,
time.
well, actually, he did not get asked that today, and we did find out Shaq Thompson signed before he talked to us, and we won't talk to McDermott tomorrow. So
next time.
He won't get that question.
Okay.
There you go.
Just kidding.
Yes.
Also, it's not like the Bills have every hole filled. Apparently, they're looking for a mascot.
I read that too. I had no idea, but I read that too today, that apparently they're looking for a Billy Buffalo. I read that online, And that's I don't know what goes into.
I'm
I
thinking
will
that
say
too.
this: I do have a funny mascot kind of that's interesting story. Which is we were in Denver one year. I might have shared this before on the radio, but it's kind of cool. We're in Denver one year, and we're playing the Bills. The Bills are playing the Broncos, and me and some of the people from the team were at the hotel, and we were down in like the restaurant area. This has to be the Kyle Orton year, I think, right
Okay.
around there. So what's that? 2014, right? So. This guy comes into the restaurant. And he starts like, oh, hey, he starts knowing all the people I'm sitting with from the Bills. And they're like, yeah, it's the mascot for the Broncos. And I'm like, oh, really? I'm like, how do you know them? He's like, oh, I used to work in Buffalo, and I was a mascot there. And I think he might have been like Sabretooth. I'm like, wait a minute. Like, you went from one mascot to the other? He's like, oh, yeah, this is a career. We have like this fraternity of people. All the mascots know each other. And I didn't know this. Like, I thought this is a pretty big deal, guys. But yeah, they kind of hang out and know each other. And it's a big career that they have that they move around like people in radio and TV, I guess.
I would love to know like what the team looks for in a candidate. I think maybe one thing is you probably have to be in really good shape to be the mascot. Like you're
probably right.
You're running all over the stadium all day,
Right.
climbing on stuff, and
Wearing that big
up
hot
and down
furry
the-
suit.
hot furry suit, up and down the steps.
Yep.
All day. I bet you have to be in pretty good shape, but I don't know what else.
Well, that's interesting. So you hear that the Bills they're looking to fill the role of Billy Buffalo, and you might think like, oh, I've got maybe a recent college graduate that's having trouble in the job market. Maybe they should apply for this. They seem about the right size to fit into a mascot suit, but little do we know that there's mascot free agents out there banging the door
Yes.
down. They knew a month ago that Billy Buffalo was going to be available, and these people are all lining up. The guy or girl who used to be the Cincinnati Reds mascot is on line one.
Right.
They
Mr.
want
Red.
Billy Buffalo. They
Mr.
think that's
Red.
an upgrade.
Mr. Red,
Right.
is there
I
still a
had
Mr.
no
Red?
idea about this, but apparently it is a thing, and it's hey, good for them. It's a serious business. And that being said, though, hey, if there is somebody out there who wants to apply, I would not discourage them.
Wonder how much experience is really necessary here. Very good. Sal, thanks for today.
You got it, man.
That's our dude Sal Capaccio on the West Her Hotline. His appearances are always brought to you by New York's only outlet liquor. When you need to stock up, it's the place to buy a case. What's your outlet?
I knew McDermott wouldn't speak tomorrow. I did say tomorrow. I've been around a little while.
Today was it.
Today was it. Just like next time,